Welcome to Far East Wargaming. It's 2023, the start of the year, so we thought we'd release our first little intro video to what we're doing this year and what's happened over the last few months. So we started earlier last year, and at the end of the year we had a very large tournament for Horus Heresy in KL, which was organized by Jason.
Yep, first one ever in Malaysia for Heresy. We were really happy with how that went, but it was a lot of work.
Yeah, so we spent a lot of time on the entire event itself, including all the new terrain we had to build. So that's why we had to slow down on the release of the videos. But it's 2023 now, and we've got a lot planned for the next coming months. So please stay tuned, subscribe, and I look forward to you enjoying our content. Anyway, so the start of 2023 was actually pretty exciting, especially for one of us, Jason here.
Absolutely, yeah. So I just got back from No Retreat Horus Heresy 3 in Gibraltar, which was an absolutely amazing experience. I won't ruin the surprise. We'll talk a little bit about it here in a moment. But if I had my bucket list of nerd-like events that I wanted to cross off, this was certainly one of them. Very exciting stuff. Yeah,
looking at the Instagram from SN, it looked like an amazing event, and very jealous I wasn't there. But maybe hopefully in the future we'll figure something out. But tell us a bit more about the actual trip. Like, what went on there?
Wow. Okay, well, I'll start from the beginning. I'll make the story short. But basically, it took us 55 hours to get to Gibraltar. So my wife and I, we made the journey. We originally planned on getting to Gibraltar on Thursday so we could really enjoy the pre-event festivities, get to meet everybody. That's such an integral part of No Retreat. But unfortunately, the airlines did not cooperate, and it took us 55 hours. We spent overnight in Heathrow. We didn't finally land in Gibraltar until about 30 minutes before game time for day one, game one.
Wow.
Yes. So at first, I would say that we were probably a bit discouraged and maybe a bit disappointed. But I can tell you this, that once we finally got there, everything just kind of melted away, and it was really an amazing experience.
Yeah. Well, it was. It did look it from the videos we saw and the photos we saw, and especially I think this attitude you had on our personal chat when he finally got to enjoy some of the event. So, but look, tell us more about the event. How did it actually start? How did you hear about this?
Yeah, so I mean, most people probably know who S&M Battle Reports is. You know, very famous channel, amazing content. They do the No Retreat for 40K for Heresy. Reputation for putting on some really awesome events. And so I had known about them from that, and it was kind of on my bucket list to go and do a No Retreat at some point, or at least try to apply for a No Retreat at some point, which I'll talk about in a minute. I've been to Adepticon, I've played grand tournaments in the US, had the opportunity to go to Warhammer World. And so for me, this was really on my list of things that I wanted to do, and I had the opportunity to apply. And so there's an application process. I was invited to apply. There was a lot of people that applied, and I was very humbled and honored to actually be selected for one of the attendees. And so my Death Guard were the army that were selected, and yeah, so going through the process, and once I saw some of the armies that were there, I was actually stunned and very, very pleasantly surprised that I was selected to join.
Yeah. Well, I remember when you got the acceptance, it was quite a thing for us as our community down in Malaysia, that somebody from Southeast Asia got selected to go to such a prestigious event. So we were all very proud of you, and we kind of knew your army deserved at least that kind of showcasing. And we try to do that here on the channel as well. It's definitely something to behold, and I'm glad somebody from here got to make it.
Yeah, absolutely. The heresy community here in Asia and in Southeast Asia is still kind of it's growing. It's young. We didn't have really a heresy community 5 years ago. And I think more and more players are starting to come over, you know, especially people that are, I don't want to disparage 40K, but I think we're getting a lot of 40K players that now want to try out Heresy, especially with the new rules and the new box set and whatnot. So to be able to represent, not myself, but to represent Malaysia and send somebody from Asia to go and attend the tournament, I think was something that I was really, really happy to do and very, very humbled to do.
Well, speaking of the tournament itself, it wasn't a normal tournament, right? It wasn't a purely gaming one.
No, not at all. So No Retreat for Horus Heresy is narrative. It's very much in the narrative space. People are not bringing your table everybody at every opportunity kind of armies. It's really a showcase for some very passionate people with beautiful armies to come and just have fun throwing dice. And really the win-loss, all of that is kind of irrelevant. And there's a story that we really want to tell and we really want to play. And I think that to me was something that was even more appealing about it was it's not a competition per se. It's not pure tournament, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah, that for me kind of embodies the heart of what Horus Heresy is, as opposed to the other game systems from GW, the 40k style things. We're very much theme-driven, narrative-driven, and accentuating that and highlighting that really brings out the best in the players and the community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here in Southeast Asia, here in Malaysia, the Heresy community is also fairly focused on narrative. Most people are bringing, your fluffy armies, your fun armies, not so much your, table your opponent kind of armies. And I agree with you. I would rather take that type of army to that kind of event and not so much on the competitive side. So it definitely matched up with my expectations.
Yeah. So, well, moving on, like speaking about the event itself, how was it structured?
Amazing. I can't say enough good things about the event itself. The venue, of course, was on a 5-star hotel, which used to be a cruise ship. So the rooms, the layout, the venue itself, absolutely top-notch, amazing. The service levels of the staff, I can't say enough good things about it. The area in which we played, all of the tables were beautiful, beautiful terrain, very well laid out. A bar right next to the gaming area, which for people that know me, I enjoy to have a beverage or two as I play with my toy soldiers.
I think you're not the only one in the community who likes to have
Yeah.
a drink whilst or before and after playing.
Yeah, exactly. So the venue itself was amazing, and the tables, like I said, they were great. Gibraltar actually exceeded all expectations. I've never been to Gibraltar. I knew a little bit about it from history and military history and whatnot, but what I saw when I got there, people are warm and friendly. Clean place, some very interesting historical things, very nice place to just chill and have a nice, time out sitting on the patio or whatever else. So overall, I think the atmosphere of the location is fantastic. And I would go back in a heartbeat, even if it wasn't for an event like this. I'd actually go back and spend a couple days in Gibraltar if I had the chance to do it again.
Really? That's interesting to hear. I've known of Gibraltar for a while, but it's kind of like half England, half Spain.
Yeah.
So maybe a bit of the best of both, or maybe a bit of the worst of both. I was never too sure. So personally, I've not been, but I'd look forward to going if SN held another one next year or in the future.
Yep.
And I could apply.
Yep.
But yes. So how did you do?
Well, before I say how I did, I actually didn't have any expectations to do well. And what I mean by that is not that I was trying to lose. Of course, nobody's trying to lose. But as we'll see in a moment when I talk about the Army, I tried to bring something that was more fluffy. With the Death Guard, I tried to bring something that was the right painting standard and not so much optimized. I ended up going 3-1-1, which I think was pretty lucky, and we'll talk about the games in just a moment. But realistically, I could have gone 0-5 and still had a blast, and would want to go back and do it again. But yeah, we'll talk about the games, but I did fairly well in the actual games themselves, and I did, to me, more importantly, I did get some votes from favorite opponents and things like that, and that to me is the more important part than actually the wins and the losses.
Well, that really highlights to me how the event is better than or a pure gaming event. It's not about the wins and losses. If you can enjoy it while still losing or drawing or just generally taking part, that really is a key aspect of making a good event.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way the awards were structured contributes to that. The atmosphere contributes to that. The fact that it's narrative versus competitive. Everybody I met was awesome to deal with. My 5 opponents, great opponents, beautiful armies, fun to play against, lots of laughs. So all of that put together, yeah, I mean, the wins and the losses were totally irrelevant at that point.
Sure. Well, let's explain a bit about the Army itself. First off, were you loyalist or traitor?
I was traitor, which for me, the gang here knows that I tend to actually play loyalist Death Guard, and this army was built to be loyalist. It wasn't until just a couple years ago that I even had a Mortarion or even had a Typhus. It was based on Crisis Morturg from the books, and his loyalist at Isfahan. So I brought a very infantry-heavy army. As I mentioned before, I prefer more of the fluff, and for the Death Guard, having lots of infantry is key. I have foot-slogging Terminators, Grave Wardens with a Delegatus. I have Breachers in a Land Raider, which is probably not a ultra-competitive choice.
Especially now.
Yes, exactly, but a fun choice. I did have heavy support squads, but no las cannons. So really, when it came to things like anti-tank, my list wasn't optimized at all, but I didn't really care. But it could put out a lot of damage for dreads and for infantry as well. So But yes, 2 heavy support squads, recon marines, tac squads and rhinos, breachers, a couple contemptors. So yeah, it was, again, very infantry heavy and very Death Guard in my opinion.
Well, looking at it myself, having looked at your list, it looked rather balanced, like very well balanced. Thematic is kind of a key part of it, but also with enough scoring, I think is the main thing to help in the games. I think scoring for us is something we see in our community not prioritized enough in the lists we're playing against, and it is a vital part of most of our game system.
Yeah, absolutely. So I tend to build armies, whether it's my Death Guard or any of my other legions, I tend to build armies that emphasize boys versus toys.
Yeah.
So I don't run a super tooled up HQ. I mean, for the Rite of War, for Creeping Death, I had to take a Siegebreaker, for example, and he's bare bones with a chainsword and a bolt pistol just because I had to take that. I'd actually rather have more infantry on the table than, massive Death Stars, but again, that's just me. Right?
Yeah.
But scoring is very important, and so I have 4 scoring units between the tac squads, the breachers, the recon marines, and it did make a difference, actually. In a couple of the games, if I did not have that much scoring, I probably would have suffered.
Yeah. I'm very much the opposite. I like my big ball of death, and I like my toys, and I'm guilty of not bringing enough scoring in most of our games. So it's something I have to learn. But seeing it played like this way, it's just educational for me anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, different styles. There's no right or wrong style. If you want to play, win at all costs, play win at all costs. If you want to play with lots of big toys, play with big toys. You want to play with Primarchs, whatever. Doesn't matter. I think it's more just about the gentleman's agreement. And for us, we tend to play a much more gentleman type list.
Yeah.
But definitely scoring. Don't forget your scoring.
Well, in the games themselves, from what I've seen of the sneak peeks that SN has released, it looked like majority of the people brought very friendly or non-tabling lists. So how was your games, and who did you play?
Yeah, I would say overall, to your point about the types of lists that came, there were some strong lists there, but there was nothing that I thought was, over the top. And again, even if somebody brings an over the top list, if we're having fun and we're drinking beers and whatnot, great, who cares, right? But for my games, I got to play, like I said, 5 amazing opponents, 5 very different armies, so I didn't have any duplicates of the types of armies that I played. I'll start, I guess, with a recap, maybe. Yeah. Just real quickly, I won't spend 20 minutes talking about this. But game 1, I played against White Scars. So a player by the name of Tim that was coming from Canada. So he was also making a long journey just like us. Beautiful, beautiful White Scars. Lots of freehand on the vehicles in particular. The whole Asian theme, which is very popular with the White Scars. Chinsha, the special character. Lots of Terminators, so it was a very elite, very small list. Basically, I held on, is what I did. Which is going to be a theme of all the games that I played. I held on.
Well, that is Death Guard, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very Death
survive.
It's very Death Guard. But yeah, I just tried to go through that game, basically staying away from his most deadly stuff and kind of whittling things down. And I got very lucky to blow up some vehicles and whatnot. But I ended up winning that first game. But honestly, if a couple dice rolls don't go a different way, totally different result. But the army itself was amazing, and Tim is a really, really nice guy. So definitely can't say enough good things about that particular game. So that was game 1.
And that was on the first day. How was it structured in terms of how many games did you play over how many days?
Yeah, we played 5 games. And before I talk about the structure, first of all, I want to say a big shout out to Pardo and a big shout out to all of the attendees, because since we came in so late, they effectively held the start of game 1 just for us to get there. So as soon as we landed in Gibraltar, Pardo picks us up from the airport. Amazing. Drives us straight to the venue. My wife goes and checks in, and I go straight to game 1. So big thank you to the staff and to the players for being willing to do that, because that says a lot about all of you. But the way it was structured, we had 3 days of gaming, and then of course there's different events that are going on during the downtime, whether it's tours or whether it's painting seminars or photographs, whatever it is. So day 1 was only 1 game, and that was on Friday, and that's when I played Tim. And so we knocked off relatively early. So we knocked off probably, I think, 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening, maybe a little bit later. And that gave us time to actually go socialize.
Yeah.
And it was great to go and have a few adult beverages with many of the attendees. And several of us really made a night of it on Friday, which was a lot of fun.
So, not a traditional gaming holiday, or actually is more like a traditional gaming holiday?
No, I mean, it's the way that I would prefer it, actually. So like I said, I've done Adepticon, I've done GTs, and when you're trying to cram 3 or 4 games, in some cases, into a single day, I mean, you're just exhausted. Your brain's exhausted. I like the fact that the structure was one day, 1 game, and then the next 2 days, 2 games each, and you really get an opportunity to meet the other people, to do the social things, and not to burn yourself up.
Yeah, well, it is a holiday as well, and it's you try and enjoy yourself, but having the time to chit chat, watch other people play as well, I think it's a key part of this.
Yes, absolutely. So, I won't give away the secrets either.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is there was a lot of things that happened over the course of the 3 days during the gaming, but I don't think that would be fair to other attendees or future attendees to talk about that. But there was a lot of awesome, I think, narrative-related activities and actions and parts of the missions, etc., that really made it such a fun event.
Yeah. Well, I know a bit about these, but I can tell you they did sound pretty cool.
Yes.
So then just like, let's try and recap a bit quickly all the games in terms of, you had 5 games, so the first game was White Scars.
Yes.
Who are you playing next on day 2?
Second game was on day 2 was Matt. So Matt from the UK, he was bringing an Ultramarines armored list, and I'm not ashamed to admit that when I saw it, I thought to myself, there is no way I'm stopping this. None whatsoever. It had a lot of armor. I mean, it had Sicarans, it had Vindicators, it had Sabers. He only had 1 infantry model in the whole army, which was a librarian who was using his dirty tricks to give preferred enemy to tanks.
Oh, okay.
But in that particular game, just a quick recap, I hid. The way that it was deployed, the way the table was set up, we were playing Onslaught, where you're generating points every turn from the objectives, and I was able to kind of castle up and use that to my advantage to generate points every single turn. But I think Matt and I both agreed at the end of the game that I really had no business winning that game. And I think I played more like Night Lords than Death Guard because I was hiding a lot, but really that was the only way to deal with the list.
Well, that kind of list didn't have many scoring, did it? So
no, it didn't have any scoring.
Yeah. Because
in 2.0, those Predators are not line. They are troops, but they're not line. And in that mission, he had no way to score, so basically he also had to table me. But yes, I hid. Beautiful army, great opponent, lots of laughs, and I also learned a nasty lesson on the power of a conversion beamer Predator, dropping strength 12 pie plates on my head over and over again. I think turn 1 I lost probably 1/3 of my army.
Oh wow, and you managed to survive and hold out to the end.
I was using vehicles as bunkers, I was hiding, I was generating points, that's all I was trying to do in that game, but it was a lot of fun,
Okay, well, so that was the first game of day 2.
Yep.
Then who did you play in the afternoon? I'm guessing it was the afternoon.
Game 3 was versus Steve. So Steve was also from the UK. He's a store owner in the UK. He has a very beautiful Raven Guard army. It's hard to make black look good. His looks great, and it's got a lot of really nice weathering techniques that I think really added to the appearance. He was bringing Corax.
Oh, Primarch's in play.
Primarch was in play. This was another time where he pulled his army out of the bag, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, what am I going to do about this? I've never played against Corax. We don't play a lot of Primarchs here. Yeah,
mainly because our community doesn't really have the points built up yet to make Primarchs even viable on the field.
Yes.
So, but that's changing. We are getting more and more. We have Primarchs on the workbench for a lot of our players and already complete. It's about getting the rest of the army done to bring along with it. So we will see Primarchs in the future, but yes, we don't tend to play Lords of War.
No, and it's not that we're limiting on purpose. It's just most people, as Rich mentioned, they're growing their armies, and because they're growing their armies, we just don't see a lot of Primarchs yet. I've played against a Primarch. You and I have played.
Yeah, we played Primarchs.
Yep, we played Mortarion versus Fulgrim.
Yes.
But this was my first time to play against Corax. I ended up winning the game, but the way I won that game was just trying to kill all of his scoring and then backing up from Corax and his Dark Fury Death Star.
Yeah.
Because once they reached my lines, it was just a blender.
I think their rules for rending and shred with their claws is very, very scary.
Yes, and Steve was a great opponent. We had a lot of laughs in that game, which was awesome. There was just some moments back and forth, like turn 1 where I'm trading my las cannon Contemptor and he's trading his las cannon squad, and just different things were happening during that game that we were laughing a lot. So All of my opponents were fantastic. Steve was definitely the most fun of the entire event, but that's not a knock against anybody else. It's just that Steve and I were having such a good time and laughs during the game.
Well, that's always, again, I think the recurring theme, the point is to enjoy everything you do, especially at these kind of events. And if the event itself can generate that simply by who you play and the people they invite, again, it's a curated event, so they do look for that type of player, I'm guessing.
Yep.
And that really builds the community, in my opinion. We try and do the same here in Malaysia, in Far East Wargaming.
Yep.
We're looking for people who are going to enjoy the game, regardless of being tabled or not. It's just a general event. We don't drink on our streams, but I think on our hobby times, we're definitely drinking some adult beverages and having a laugh and just seeing where things go.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So, well, that's day 2. Then last 2 games on day 3.
Yeah, so day 2 evening, of course, we go do more social activities, more adult beverages are consumed. We had a really nice dinner at a local Italian restaurant. And then we went out after that. Some people went to the casino, some people went and had drinks. So we did that at the end of day 2. Then day 3, I started the day versus Josh. So Josh has a very beautiful Imperial Fist army. If I remember correctly, he had a Spartan, he had a Land Raider, he had some Sakarans. It was kind of one of those kinds of games where it could go either way the entire game. There was an event that happened during Game 4 that was narrative in nature, and again, I don't want to spoil the surprise, but that narrative event really is what swung the game, and it was still fun at the same time. It wasn't like something came in and happened and it was an auto lose for your opponent or anything like that. It really could have gone either way, and I thought that narrative event that happened during our game was really fun. Basically, we had a third person that came and played the game with us, and I'll leave it at that. But yeah, that ended up being kind of the factor at the end, and then I ended up winning that game. But it was close, and it was fun, and Josh and I had a lot of laughs as well, and a couple beers, I think. So yeah, that one was first game of day 3.
First game of day 3.
Yep.
And then the final one, what did you play in the final game?
So in the final game, if you actually look at the event social media, or you look at any of the stuff that's coming out from SNN or the attendees, there was Zone Mortalis available. Both sides, Trader and Loyalist, had the option of certain things happening. You could request a Zone Mortalis game. And so for Game 5 for the Traders, I volunteered and I said, okay, I'll play Zone Mortalis. And I had to pare my list down to 1,250 points. And then we were playing a very special Zone Mortalis mission, and whoever won that mission could trigger something to happen. Right? That's the way I can best describe that. And I was playing a guy from the U.S., so another guy traveling from a long distance, Levi. So he came over, and he has a really, really nice Salamanders army.
Oh, Sally's in Zone Mortalis.
Ooh, yes. My army has a lot of things with the heavy subtype, which means I can't run.
Yes.
Which in that mission was really bad. So I had no choice but to play my Contemptors. I had no choice but to play my Breachers, my Terminators, and I'm trying to get across the table, and he's trying to stop me, basically. And I'm trying to blow something up. And if I blow this thing up, then hooray, great things happen for the Traders. If he stops me, then great things for the Loyalists. I came up just short. It literally came down to a single dice roll. If one of his squads had failed a leadership check in close combat, it would have opened the door for me to go ahead and do this. But again, great game. He has a beautiful army. Levi has a really, really nice painting style. It's very bright. It pops. It's high contrast. And it was a lot of fun trying to figure out a way to get through Fire Drakes and Pyroclasts. But yeah, it almost happened. But ended up losing that game. Doesn't matter. Great time.
Well, swinging back to what you said about the painting styles, I'm guessing the armies all had very different painting styles in terms of the edge highlighted versus the grim dark style and things like this. What was the level of painting? Because it looked amazing, but you were there in person.
Unbelievable is how I would describe the level of painting. It's obvious that you had a lot of people there that really take a lot of pride and a lot of passion into what they do, which is fantastic to see. I mean, when you have beautiful armies on beautiful tables with great opponents, good things happen. So the overall level of painting, in my mind, was just a notch above anything that I could even deliver. And it was inspiring in a lot of ways. It makes me want to actually get better. It makes me want to do things to this army or to my other armies to kind of match that level. So I'll call out a couple examples. I mentioned Tim's freehand. There was a lot of amazing freehand there. whether it was White Scars or World Eaters. Different armies, different painters had really great freehand. There was Lee, whose Mechanicum army was absolutely unbelievable. A combination of freehand, plus knights that have been dremeled out, and watch parts and resin have been poured into it, and handmade bases. That level of army. And you did see a mix. Most of it was in the grimdark style, heavily weathered. There was a player from Finland that brought an army with the World Eaters, the one best army, that every single model was unique, which is amazing to do with the World Eaters. But yes, more of it tended to go to the grimdark. There was a couple of more of the heavy metal style. But yeah, it was just a lot of very beautiful stuff at a completely different level. And I think if you check out the social media for the various sources and you see the close-ups, you can see what kind of paint jobs were there. And I'm not afraid to admit that when I saw these armies and I looked at mine, I'm like, wow. Right.
Well, that's honestly a lot to say, because for us, the kind of standard is set by Jason out here. We do have some fantastic professional painters in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia especially, and in Singapore. But we don't see them so much in the Heresy community as much as the 40K community there. But I don't know, that sounds kind of intimidating to try and go and attend one of these events when there's this level of painting.
Don't let it intimidate you. And what I mean by that is actually my army, through the application process, was selected, my Death Guard. I spent a couple months actually taking the weathering up another level, because my style that I typically paint in tends to be a mix of heavy metal and grim dark, and I wanted to kind of up the level of the army. So don't let it discourage you if you're not at that level of Golden Demon or whatever else. That's not the message that I want to leave. Have a coherent style, have a beautiful army in your style, and you don't necessarily have to do what everybody else is doing. Just give it your best, put in the little touches like customization, or if you can do a little bit of freehand, or you can do some certain weathering techniques. Again, those armies should inspire you. They shouldn't discourage you. And for me, it was very much an inspiration. So,
well, look, I'm glad to hear. If you bring up your level of painting, it's only better for the rest of us out here in Southeast Asia, especially in Malaysia and Horus Wargaming. But overall, for the event, what was your impression, and would you go again?
Great question. Overall impression, if you can't tell by now, 10 out of 10. I'd give it an 11 if I could. I mean, everything about it was great. The staff were wonderful. The players were wonderful. The tables, the armies, the missions, the narrative aspect of it. The social activities, had a lot of fun. We really, really had a lot of fun. My wife, was, like I mentioned, was with me, and she had a lot of fun. So overall, I can't say enough good things about it. I recommend very highly that everybody tries to apply. If you get the opportunity to go, you will really, really enjoy yourself, I promise. As far as would I go again? Absolutely, if I'm selected, okay? Because there is an application process.
Yeah.
If I was ever selected to go again, I'd do it in a heartbeat, because I had that much fun. And to me, that's what it's all about.
Slightly different army, or bringing back these bad boys?
Yeah, great question. I think if I was to bring back the Death Guard, I would probably change it up. I'd probably add some new units, maybe try to up my level, my standard. I do have some other legions. Those would probably need to have a bit of work done to them to also bring them up a bit. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't mind bringing another legion. I could bring my Iron Hands with more work. I could bring my Night Lords. I'd bring whatever they wanted me to, right? Because they're also trying to balance the traitors and the loyalists, and they're also trying to have a nice spread and representation of the different armies. So if I was successful to apply and they wanted me to bring a different list, absolutely.
Well, something to aspire to anyway, especially, I'll speak on a personal point of view. It sounds like a great event. I'd love to go. I do have to level up my painting style, and that's a no-brainer for me. But yes, definitely now on a bucket list.
Well, I want to see more people from Asia get an opportunity to join the event. And I think the staff would love to have more people from this part of the world come and join as well. Hopefully we can use this to kind of keep the momentum building in Southeast Asia for the channel, for everything else. And I think it would be great if we could have, 3-4 players from Asia go and join No Retreat in the future.
Yeah. Well, let's try and build the community out here, get the level of painting up, and have that as a goal, I think, for us at Horus Wargaming, to see if we can get some of our community to be at that standard.
Yeah, absolutely. Inspiration, like I mentioned. Don't be discouraged from applying. Really don't. So,
well, any last words to round this off about the event, or what you're thinking of doing in the rest of 2023 for Horus Wargaming, or actually just yourselves in terms of armies?
Yep. So final thoughts on the event. Fantastic. Big thank you to everybody involved. I can't say enough good things. Pardo in particular. I mean, somebody picking you up from the airport personally and doing the things that he did to help us with our travel problems. Amazing. Lots of laughs for everybody that was there. I really enjoyed that. So thank you very, very much for the great experience, the memories that were made. As far as 2023, I'm excited that we're going to do more stuff here on the channel. Battle reports, everything that we've been doing a little bit in last year, we're going to kick it up a notch. I'm excited to work on new legions. So I am working on those legions that I mentioned. I have a few different ones that I'm working on right now. But yeah, hopefully 2023 will be the year of heresy growth in Southeast Asia.
Well, we can all hope for the best for that. I especially do. It's something we want to see, and I think with the growth of heresy just globally right now, it's definitely the time to showcase what we can do out here in Southeast Asia.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, look, from Far East Wargaming, thanks very much, and we look forward to seeing you and hearing from you guys for the rest of 2023.
See you next time.
See ya.